I heard the housekeeper's voice. Our house and the front yard are huge, so unlike normal houses, ringing a doorbell or yelling my name repeatedly asking to play won't work. It's Rika.
来たね来たね。ばっちゃんにリカちゃまが来たって伝えてもらえます？多分あっちの縁側にいると思います。私はスイカを引き上げてきますね。
Granny received many beautiful watermelons from somebody, so she wanted to share. I just called the food a house a short time ago, and Rika-chan is here to pick one up. Did she come on her bicycle? I can't remember if it has a big enough basket. I pulled the watermelon from the well while thinking about that. The cold water in the well has refrigerated the watermelon, and the condensation makes it look delicious. The 3 members of the Furuta family will enjoy it for at least 2 nights. Me?
お持ち帰りだったのですか。僕はてっきり。
あれ？おじさんそう言わなかったっけ？
The priest answered the phone, and I thought I told him to come pick it up. Maybe I wasn't clear enough, or maybe he misunderstood me completely. But she's here to eat the watermelon, not to take it home. Besides, the small basket on Rika-chan's bicycle won't hold the watermelon, and it's too dangerous for her to ride while holding it in her hands.
Mion! お前、リカちゃまんちまで超持ってたらな。スイカ片手な自転車なん焦がれんて。
僕だってスイカくらい持てますのですよ。
Me.
危な危な。リカちゃまに何かあったら、お社様に申し訳立たんね。うちのミオンが運ぶんね。任せたったら。
はいはい、任せられたったら。じゃあついでに神主さんにご挨拶でもしてこようかね。
No matter whether she rides or pushes her bicycle, Rika-chan's hands will be occupied. So I'm going to carry the watermelon. The sky is turning auburn and it's sunset. The cool breeze feels good on my sandaled feet. The plastic bag I'm carrying contains the watermelon, and also some small bags of raw candy. If her mother finds them, she'll take them away. So we decided to eat them before we got to her home. We opened the bags and enjoyed the raw candy. Rika-chan isn't an exception. Whenever kids from our neighborhood come to our house for errands, Granny gives them some treats. Actually, that's a pretty common rule here in Hinamizawa. It's funny, but sometimes when parents aren't watching, siblings will fight over who gets to take the circular notice the next house over. So these bags of raw candy are like tips for them. Of course, she doesn't normally give out this much. Usually it's just a little piece of it. Granny is being extra nice to Rika-chan.
僕だけこんなにいろいろおだちんをもらうと他の人に悪い気がしますです。
You know, this brings up like a thought right over here that kind of makes me question, and I kind of wished we had something more of like this throughout the story. We kind of needed more. Like, I kind of wanted to learn more about Hinamizawa in itself, like the little traditions and such here and there, like the small stuff that the villagers do here and there, like stuff like this. I think it would be nice to learn more stuff like this, like the little traditions slash stuff that people do around here, like in their normal days, like the fun little stories that doesn't necessarily have to do with like the main cast and all that.
別に気にすることないんじゃない？おだちんは好意みたいなもんなんだもん。変に断るよりは子供らしくありがとうって言って笑顔を見せる方がよっぽどいいと思うけどね。
みーはおだちんをよくもらいますですか？
昔はね。でもさすがにこの年になったらもらわなくなったな。今もらうとなんだか子供扱いされてるみたいで、かえってカチンとくるかななんてね。
みー、
ね
僕は子供扱いなのです。
いいじゃんいいじゃん。もらえるうちにもらっとけばいい。私くらいになれば欲しくてももらえなくなるんだからさ。
Are you kidding? As we talked about ordinary things, I noticed Eka-chan seemed a little sad.
どうしたの？
僕はお買い物に行ってもよくおだちんに飴をもらいますが、さとこは一緒に行ってももらえませんです。
I can't think of so many reasons why. Not only Satoko, but everyone in the Hojo family is being treated poorly in Hinamizawa. And the Sonozaki family are the ones who instigated that. The 2 dance supporters have died in an accident already, but the malice against the Hojo family is still going. It's directed against Satoko and Satoshi, their children, and aunt and uncle who are taking care of them. The big fight between the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family at the explanatory meeting started all of this. But that was the Hojo couple, and it shouldn't have anything to do with the children and their aunt and uncle. But the idea that the Hojo family are traitors evolved on its own. Therefore, anyone bearing the Hojo name is to be treated poorly. The aunt and uncle weren't dance supporters, so over time the attacks towards them should have stopped. But they are rather odd, and they keep having trouble with their neighbors. They don't follow the community rules. They don't do their community duties, and they spray pesticide while their neighbor's laundry is still hanging outside. They often get into fights with the other villagers. They be hated even without the dam. Therefore, the Hojo family continues to be treated poorly. But none of that should have anything to do with Satoko and Satoshi. Satoko and Satoshi are often depressed at school. I try to leave the conflict between the 2 families aside, but I wonder how they really feel about that. From their point of view, I'm just another member of the family that keeps harassing them.
せめて学校にはそんな雰囲気を持ち込ませたくない。だから私はそういう風に振る舞ってるつもりだよ。
それを学校の中だけでなく外にも広げるにはどうしたらいいのですか？
That would be pretty difficult. The Hojo family made enemies of the 3 families. They were branded as traitors, and that's still considered a truth. It wouldn't mean anything if one person suggested an end to the hostilities, just because the events around the dam are history now. On the contrary, that would just put them in the same position. Unfortunately for Satoko and Satoshi, the only thing they can do is to wait patiently until the issue withers away. All I can do for them is provide an oasis until that day comes.
では、さとこたちはいつまで耐え忍べばいいのですか？
わかんない。
Until we manage a miracle in Chapter 7. With plenty of struggle and effort. God, I just...
ダム戦争は数年に及んだ。その時に押された烙印を払拭するんだから、それと同じ年数はかかるかもしれないね。
それはつまり、さとこたちが大人になるまで誰にも許してもらえないということですか？さとこが子供のうちはずっと村中から冷たい目で見られていろということですか？
それはあまりにも辛いね。
みー、僕たちはさとこやさとしの仲間なのですよね。
そうだよ。私にとってだって2人は友達だよ。仲間だよ。
なら僕たちの仲間を救うために僕たちに何かできることはないのでしょうか？
私たちに 何ができるんだろうね。
Even if the Sonozaki family declares that the conflict is over, so the Hojo family are no longer outcasts, that won't solve the problem. It's not that simple. In the first place, Granny hates the Hojo family and won't suffer their name to be mentioned in her presence. It's not a matter of someone forgiving another. It's a matter of very complicated ties between the people in this village. Now you motherfuckers are making it complicated. It's absolutely terrifying to have them as your enemies. Everyone knows that very well, and that's why they maintain good relationships with their neighbors. However, if you make enemies out of them, you have to face the consequences. That's the unwritten law of the Japanese community. I don't want to ask you this, folks, because I've been talking about how Higurashi has been the most Japanese kind of story that I've ever written and all that. Does this reflect like how the old ways of Japan was, like in the 1900s? Villages like in Japan have been like this. Like, where's the unity? Where's the friendliness? Does it have to be? Well, I mean, obviously, villages usually don't have like main powers like the Sonozakis and such. So I would assume not. I would assume that like a typical 1900s Japanese village would be a little bit more united, a little bit more friendly than having like neighbors, families adhere to the laws of the community, otherwise you're going to be ostracized or something like that. I mean, of course, if you're going to continue to be like a bad apple and all that, you're going to be looked at with bad eyes and all that, so, and all that, but not to this extent. Yeah, they had the damn conflict and all that. It's just, it's just stupid. Yeah, Sonozaki family is a part of this unwritten law. Now that the Hojo family are outcasts, only the Sonozaki family can overturn the situation.
Hinamizawaのことは、Hinamizawaの人間にはどうしようもないということなのでしょうか。
悲しいけど、そういうこともあるかもしれない。もし、里子を救う人が現れてくれるとしたら、それは、村のしがらみにとらわれない、そういう人なんだろうね。
I mean, also, you gotta look at this from Rika's perspective. You know, the person that goes through these timelines like over and over and over. This is like one of those situations where Rika is trying to learn about the situation and trying to help Satoko, so she's asking this. Would this mean that this is the first time that she's asking about this? And from here on out, she's eventually gonna go on that mindset that, well, apparently it's a lot more complicated. That sounds like it's truly are being a bunch of assholes about it. So here, Rika is trying to see if she can help Satoko with the mindset that she's going through these timelines and like over and over and trying to figure out possibilities for Satoko.
でも、そんな人、村にはいない。
村の外から誰かが助けに来なければ救われないということですか？
Like Rika-chan says, would a knight in shining armor from the outside world ever come here? Would that person bring in a new wind into this village that has been filled with stale air for hundreds of years? Well, I was thinking of one person that appeared in chapter 7 and then just dropped out of existence. A person that I once saw as the knight in shining armor in similar fashion to Rika, but then just dipped and never helped in any way possible. despite like all the efforts that we've gone through to create like all the miracles through chapter 7, like we were this close. No way. That's just wishful thinking. Time will solve the problem someday. Until then, I have to be their ally. I can't think of anything else I can do for them. I am mad at Akasaka, in case you guys who didn't put the pieces together, didn't connect the dots and all that. I was referring to Akasaka. As Rika-chan and I crunched on our rock candy, we can only pray that people will forgive Satoko and her family sooner rather than later. Rika-chan gently broke the heavy silence.
きっと村の外からしがらみにとらわれない人がやってきます。
そうだね。ダム戦争も終わったんだから、また分譲地に外から人が引っ越してきてくれるといいね。
Although I guess now that I'm thinking about it, they're referring to Keiichi, aren't they? Yeah, they're definitely thinking of Keiichi. In which case, yeah, that person, 100% certain that will help.
近い年の転校生とか来れば楽しいだろうに。
来ます。きっと。そして彼と力を合わせて私たちは村の悪兵を打ち破るのです。それが私たちの未来を閉ざす3つの錠前に対する最初の鍵。
Oh. Wait, hold on a second. Is this present Rika? I mean, by present, I mean, is this like the Rika that has like all the experience even after chapter 7? Nah, I don't think so, honestly. 'Cause her powers are diminishing, therefore she wouldn't be able to travel this far in the past. So, okay, in which case, maybe it's not the way I think it is, that this is Rika of chapter 7 who has seen Keiichi create like a miracle and save Satoko. So now she's saying, oh yes, there's definitely somebody who is gonna help Satoko and defeat this evil practice. No, I think this is Rika still like in the early days, being hopeful and seeing Keiichi as this new inclusion into the Hinamizawa syndrome in the village, who could help. Like, she sees something. But after a while, after many other fragments with Keiichi, Rika's like, you know what? I don't sense anything with this boy. I think that once again we're doomed. That is until chapter 7, where Keiichi has proven them wrong and he has managed to create a miracle and all. So maybe it's something like that.
え？何それ？なんかの小説？
Rika-chan says some odd things sometimes. You know, that's the reaction that that every single person's story has to Rika talking like this. She acts odd sometimes. Am I gonna question it any further? Nah. When she talks that way, she seems so mature. I even start to doubt she's really younger than I am. The unreasonable antagonism towards the Kojo family. Will there really be someone from the outside who will shatter our old traditions? Oh, there sure will be. There sure will be. I believe. Alright. Next is gonna be sacrifice number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, what is this? Satoshi-kun is a good brother who takes great care of his sister. Is this gonna be Satoshi? He went to visit Satoko-chan straight after school and kept encouraging her to get better every day. Without even hearing Satoshi-kun's stories, it's obvious to me that Satoko-chan never had a good relationship with her step-parents. She especially didn't get along with her stepfather. Satoko-chan even called a child abuse hotline once. Not only that, her parents ended up dying in an accident, so she just wasn't able to withstand all that damage. Satoko-chan is still very young, so everything must have been horrible for her to go through. Fortunately, she has a wonderful brother. Emotional wounds are hard to heal, but nothing heals those wounds better than love from family members. I am sure that one day Satoko-chan will be able to smile again. She is still in shock, but when she talks to Satoshi-kun, she smiles a little bit. Oishi from the police department keeps requesting to see her, but I think I need to protect her for just a little longer. While he's passionate about his job, I wish he'd be a touch more sensitive. If it reminds her of her parents' accident, her emotional wounds will start to open up again. That's the one point I worry about with Satoko-chan. I heard someone knocking on the door. It was Takano-san. He doesn't look right, wearing a nurse's uniform like that. She's a licensed doctor, so she should wear a white coat and act like one. Maybe this is fun for her, but I think she might be insulting the real nurses. I didn't say anything though.
入江先生、ちょっとよろしいですか？
ああ、はい。それではサトシ君、私は失礼します。
あ、はい。サトシ君、こんにちは。さとこちゃんと遊んであげててね。ずっと一人でいるからきっと寂しいと思うの。ね？
そんなことございませんわよ。
ではサトシ君、よろしくお願いします。
I got up and let Satoshi-kun take over.
ところで、何かありましたか？
ここではなんですので、所長室で。
Takano-san smiled meaningfully. Usually, smiles bring happy feelings, but when it comes to Takano-san, that's rarely the case.
それは本当ですか？
ええ。簡易検査の結果、レベル3以上と思われる高い発症レベルの可能性が指摘されました。彼女をさらに入院させ、より精度の高い検査を行う必要があります。結果待ちですが、私の見たところ、レベル4の可能性すらあり得るかと。
Takano-san's eyes sparkled in a weird way. There's a reason for that. For us, finding patients in the terminal stage is a valuable boon to our research. In fact, as a result of dissecting the murder suspect from last year, we made great progress in our research. In other words, we finally managed to isolate the pathogen. We also discovered that when the host dies, the pathogen melts away within a few hours. Once that happens, it's undetectable. That's why we never found the pathogen when we performed autopsies. Yeah. It pretty much explains why they couldn't find like anything on Tomitake's dead body. I mean, that's one of the things that I had to question myself in like the early parts of chapter 1. Hell, that was one of the main things in my investigation video for chapter 1. Our research made a lot of progress after that. What we found in this past year has easily surpassed what the late Dr. Takano found in decades. We're now studying the nature, the effect, and the symptoms of the pathogen, as well as treatments and vaccines. In other words, a living specimen who's at the terminal stage is a necessity for our research. However, we rarely find a patient who's gone that far, who's reached L5. Hinamizawa syndrome once created huge numbers of L5 patients, but today, it doesn't have such potency. Because of that, we have to secure L5 patients, or patients who are close to reaching L5, as quickly as possible. Satoko-chan possibly qualifies to be that next sacrifice. To keep this strange disease a secret, we can't let patients who may be at L5 go. Which, it is fortunate that Satoko never reached a point like that where she would be at L5 and thus she would be taken away by Irie and Takano for her to disappear for good in similar fashion to Satoshi. And I guess it goes to show that Satoshi himself was at L5 and he was taken away, and Satoko luckily avoided that. Although I won't be surprised if there are some fragments out there, some timelines out there where she did reach L5 like in the past and she was the one taken away. And if that's the case, did Rika ever experience such a fragment, such a world like that? Kinda makes me question. I would assume so. We have to run more tests first. Then we'll figure out what to do next. In any case, Satoko-chan seems so calm. Her behavior is nothing like the man from last year. Initial tests are in error sometimes. We'll have to wait for the results of a more detailed tests to determine how serious her condition is.
わかりました。
経過観察のため入院ということにしましょう。スタッフの皆さんへの手配をお願いいたします。
That sounds like a formal answer. But if the results come back positive, that will be the green light for her dissection. I don't know Satoko-chan that well, but I've known her brother, Satoshi-kun, through the baseball team for a long time. How could I dissect the apple of Satoshi-kun's eyes? I can feel scary images flashing in my head for the first time.
ご安心を。万事すでに手配させておりますわ。
She smiled, as if telling me that the dissection is already being prepared for too. Is it just her who's smiling? Am I smiling like her too? When I dissected the man last year, I did feel guilty beforehand. But once I started, it was like I was in paradise. All the pieces of the puzzle that were left by the late Dr. Takano fell into place. And at the same time, they didn't. How exciting it was! Knowing that we are the first ones to take the first steps to solve a mystery, that is. I don't even know how to explain this feeling to those who have never experienced it. There's no way to describe it with words. The only thing I can say is that even a year later, I still remember it vividly. So if the results show that Satoshi-kun's beloved sister is to be dissected, can I control myself? Can I stay calm? But that means I'm a failure of a human being. I know very well that the Hojo family was treated poorly by the villagers. And I know what Satoko-chan had to go through. Also, I know Satoshi-kun loves his sister, who is his one and only blood relative. How can I dissect Satoko-chan using my research as an excuse? I didn't feel much guilty for the man from last year, but I feel unbearable guilt towards Satoko-chan. That means what I did last year was very sinful. I don't care if a stranger dies, but I don't want Satoko-chan to die. That's not right. All lives are equally precious. I tried to convince myself that he was a violent murderer, but maybe he only became that way because he was at the terminal stage. I don't know anything about him before he became deranged. Maybe he was a model citizen who was worthy of respect. Unfortunately, he became ill and ended up doing what he did. Maybe he was a victim himself, just like my father. I know more about Hinamizawa syndrome than anybody. This disease makes people act in bizarre ways, without those people realizing it. So when the people at the terminal stage do such strange and violent things, one should be sympathetic. I already knew that back when I decided to go down this path. I should have remembered it sooner, but I only did just now. I finally realized what sinful research I'm working on. So Hojo's detailed test results came back. The results say L5. Damn! She's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage. It's actually a surprising result. In last year's case, the patient was extremely deranged. According to Takano-san's records, he complained about itching coming from the lymph nodes all over his body. He wanted to claw at his throat, just as the late Dr. Takano mentioned. But Satoko-chan isn't displaying such symptoms. Yeah, man, I mean, that's the thing. When I think of L5, which, from what I have gathered out of this, if I'm right, that means it's the last stage. What would you think of a person that is in the L5 stage? That they're itching, that they have like very compulsive, like a lot of paranoia. It would be like Shion, like at the end of chapter 5. After all the murder that she had to go through by herself in her room before murdering Keiichi, she was a complete mess. Is Satoko like anywhere near that? How is she feeling? Because as far as I can see, she's mostly being quiet, but quiet in a depressed kind of way that she doesn't feel like anything, that kind of way, but I don't know. Even in the late Takano's data, throat clawing is said to be a characteristic symptom of terminal stage patients. However, not all patients experience that symptom. I mean, that's also the thing. Are you're saying that the itching is also like it is characteristic of L5 only, or other stages? Because besides, emotional expression is very different in each person. Even if it's the same emotion, one patient may express it rather violently, and another may express it calmly. Ah, I see. So it's not just violent ways. Like not Takano. Satoko, she is fully closed in. All the emotions that she's feeling it inside of herself. We don't get to see it, but she is probably having some racing thoughts, like a lot right now. Whereas for the itching, Rena had displayed a lot of that. But does this mean that she has been in the L5 stage for the longest time? Kind of weird. Because if that's the case, she would have been taken a long time ago. So, no, I don't think that itching is only for the terminal stage. There's no way of knowing by just looking at a person. But Satoko-chan's detailed test results say that she's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage, L5. In other words, she may be feeling what the man from last year was feeling. It's just that she isn't expressing that feeling in the same way the man was. Hinamizawa syndrome affects the frontal lobes of the brain. It stimulates the most primitive of emotions, doubt, very strong. As a result, terminal patients are trapped in delusions and paranoia, and end up committing horrible crimes. Unless Irie, maybe I feel like I've already said this before, but Irie may have had a change of heart. He no longer wanted to take Satoko and Rena, since they were in the terminal stage. He said, you know what, I cannot do this anymore. Or they no longer needed terminal stage patients. They gathered all they needed to gather, I guess, at some point. And maybe Satoshi was the last one that they needed, because they'd taken Satoshi. Maybe it is a case of we were gonna take Satoko, but she will be sacrificed for Satoshi. They had to switch it up. Maybe Satoshi is the one who convinced S8E8 to take him instead of Satoko. It could very well be possible. As for Rena, maybe they didn't need her. Satoko-chan seems to show improvement when she's exchanging friendly words with Satoshi-kun. But there's a paranoia stirring inside her that may put her in a deranged state at any moment. I can't let her leave the clinic like this. However, if things go according to the manual, I will have to make a decision on her dissection. My decision will only be a formality. I can't actually refuse. Takano-san appears to be already working on a dissection schedule. So I guess S8E8 doesn't really have like any power on that. That plan will then come to me. Would I feel the same way while dissecting Satoko-chan? Would I be able to experience that trance once again? No. The question is, can I fight the temptation? As I pretend to question myself, I'm letting Takano-san prepare things on her own. By doing so, am I passively agreeing to Satoko-chan's dissection? If possible, I want to save Satoko-chan. I don't want her to be a sacrifice for this research. I don't want to dissect her. Then, what about the man from last year? Do I only care about the lives of the people I know? If I don't dissect her, do I let her live and leave the clinic? Do I simply wait for her to become deranged and commit a horrible crime? And then she'll end up here, just like the man from last year, and I'll end up dissecting her anyway. The man from last year was dissected alive, and kept that way for several months. With his skull left open, he wasn't allowed to die for several months. He was kept alive, just for our cruel experiments. Ooh. I don't want to do that to her. I don't know what to do. Even debating and agonizing over it is leading toward consent or dissection by elimination. Yeah, well, something definitely changed. Something definitely changed for Satoko to no longer be taken in. And they've definitely taken Satoshi instead. Let's see, 25, 26, 27, 28. Okay, suffering of a big brother. Now, I will say, one thing that... it is a little bit of a nitpick. Oh. Happy song. A bit of bad timing, I guess. Like, my one nitpick that I have with this connecting fragment arc right over here is that I was thinking that we're actually gonna have more of Hanyu. That, okay, we had Takano's backstory being told at the beginning of this chapter, and thus we have Takano confronting Hanyu with Hanyu's new determination to do things right this time around, and so we go on and do the connecting fragment. And literally, the first fragment that we were seeing it from Hanyu's perspective. So I was thinking that the same case would be for like all these fragments, that we were gonna explore these fragments from Hanyu's perspective, which would have been nice because that way we would have learned more about Hanyu and more importantly the way she views everything. But we're not so far. Like, these are like random pieces of fragments that tell like bits and pieces of the story that we haven't had the chance to see up until this point. Like, I kind of hope that we're gonna get to see more of Hanyu seeing all the stuff. Like, what did she feel? Like, what did she think and see when looking through this? I mean, like we don't see it, but it is more than likely like 100% sure that she has seen these fragments. She's seeing these. it's more so that we, the readers, we are the ones who are seeing this, but we don't see it in the narration. We don't see Hanyu like in the corner somewhere, invisible, looking at this. But Hanyu definitely knows, Hanyu definitely knows everything, it seems, by this point. It's just that we don't really get to see all the stuff. We don't get to see Hanyu experience this stuff. She already has been. Like, these fragments are more for us, the readers. It's like Hanyu is like grabbing like all these fragments, like a book collection that she has already read, and she's giving it to us like, here you go. I've already read like all this, now it's your turn. So, but I kind of wanted to see her go through this as well, I guess. A group of boys are playing baseball under the powerful sun, and the sound of cicadas makes the heat stand out even more. But to those boys, it's just another kind of cheering from the crowds. Of course, they go through training exercises to build stamina. But the boys don't actually like such routine activities. What they look forward to the most is the free game after practice. The school in Hinamizawa is actually borrowed from the forestry service. The schoolyard is made of gravel, so it's not very appropriate for playing sports on. The schoolyard is made of gravel. The school in Hinamizawa is actually borrowed from the forestry service. The schoolyard is made of gravel, so it's not very appropriate for playing sports on. Yeah. Have I ever told you guys that back in high school, like, our playground, the ground was made of cement, where football was played. It's stupid thinking back on it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I never played baseball. I didn't want to hurt myself. Like, really? Granted, like, there are some other parts in my city where there are, like, football fields with grass. But my high school, however, it was all cement, where the kids would play, like, football. That's stupid. Kids from Nozawa really don't care if the ground is made of gravel or not. I mean, at least it's... I mean, gravel is better, right? The other instructor is watching the game, so I decided to go get some drinks for the team.
監督、どこへ行くんですか？
皆さんにジュースを買ってこようと思いまして。もしよかったら、サトシ君も手伝ってくださると、とても助かるのですが。
はい。お手伝いします。
Satoshi-kun decided to come along with me. Good boy. A good baby. Sometimes kids don't like what grown-ups choose, so I'm glad he agreed to help. Satoshi-kun and I got in the car and headed to the grocery store nearby.
監督、サトコの具合はどうなんですか？
ええ、経過は良好ですよ。本当にゆっくりとですが、サトコちゃんの心の傷も癒えてきています。もう少しだけ安静にしてあげた方がいいでしょう。
It's natural for Satoshi-kun to be worried. Satoko-chan has been in the hospital for over 2 weeks. Of course, he doesn't know his sister has Hinamizawa syndrome. Not only that, she is almost at L5. She could become deranged at any moment. He believes she's depressed because of the shock of their parents' accident. He came to the clinic every day to cheer his sister up. But Satoko-chan has become emotionally unstable and was showing some dangerous symptoms. So he called off the visits. In fact, Satoko-chan is not doing so well. L5, the stage Satoko-chan is at, is a very abnormal one. The man from last year, who was at the same stage, was acting so abnormal that even a drug addict in his final stages would have turned and ran. Damn, what a comparison. There's no guarantee Satoko-chan won't fall into the same condition. When we performed the autopsy on that man last year, we learned the true identity of the syndrome and gained a great understanding of its mechanisms. We even discovered some important facts that may lead to the development of a cure. However, we have yet to find a method of actually curing the disease. So if Satoko-chan becomes unrecoverable, we may have to dissect her, just like we did the man from last year. How can I tell Satoshi-kun about his sister situation? All I can do is make vague comments and lie to him that she is recovering. What if she becomes much worse? That would make me an unforgivable liar. The tiny bit of conscience that remains in me hurts.
もし監督の診療所のご迷惑でなければ、もうしばらく入院させてもらった方がいいかもしれません。
それはどういう意味ですか？
I thought he wanted her to come home as soon as possible, so I am a little surprised.
いえ、実は聡子、あまりおばさん一家とも馴染めていないんです。
聡子ちゃんがご両親とあまり良い関係ではなかったと聞いていましたが、新しく預けられたおばさん夫婦ともなのですか？
聡子は大人にはあまり心を開かないので。
Satoshi-kun has told me about their family background. Their mother's constant remarriages wounded her children deeply. Satoshi-kun was able to overcome it, but Satoko-chan was too young to be able to do that. That left her traumatized, as she now has the tendency to distrust or dislike guardians who aren't related to her. Actually, nobody would like a guardian who isn't related to them. It's not just Satoko-chan. But usually people try to deal with that, even if they don't like it. I guess Satoko-chan's not capable of that.
おじさんはあまり家に帰ってこないし、いても寝てるかテレビを見てるかなので、そんなに問題はないんですが、おばさんがものすごく聡子に絡むんです。
どうしてそんなに嫌われてしまったんでしょうね。
I can guess why. Satoko-chan's parents were damn proponents, and because of that, the villagers considered the aunt and uncle part of the Hojo family and ostracized them as such. Moreover, they passed away suddenly in an accident and left 2 children behind, so I guess there would be more hate there than gratitude. If she had been obedient like Satoshi-kun, everything would have been fine. But Satoko-chan can't be that way. She shows that in her attitude and expressions, which leads to her and her aunt having a big fight.
僕もおばさんに聡子の事情を説明してはいるのですが、なかなか分かってもらえなくて。
その度に聡子ちゃんをかばってあげる聡くんはお兄さんの鏡だと思いますよ。今や聡子ちゃんにとって唯一の肉親は聡くんだけなのかもしれませんからね。
そうですね。そんな気がしてます。
Satoshi-kun said with a slight hint of a sigh. He doesn't say it, but it seems Satoshi-kun has grown tired of having to cover for Satoko-chan every time she and her aunt fight. He is a good person, as well as a good big brother, so I'm sure he'd do anything to cover for his sister. But that's a very exhausting thing to keep doing forever. Satoshi-kun was already doing that when their parents were alive. Yet eventually, his mental equilibrium couldn't handle the strain. He grew sick, and he visited my clinic. I thought his circumstances might have improved after their initial cause. His parents were gone. But it seems things were even worse than before.
わかりました。そんな状況で聡子ちゃんを退院させたら、また心の症状がぶり返してしまうかもしれませんね。入院費のことは気にしないでください。聡子ちゃんが本当の意味で回復するまで、私が責任を持ってお預かりします。
While trying to pretend I'm listening to his request, I feel a little disgusted at myself for making such selfish excuses. I'll make sure. Takano-san is working on our dissection plan as we speak.
お願いできると僕も少しだけ助かります。
はい？
いえ、聡子が もうしばらく入院しててくれたら、僕もその分気が楽だなって思っただけです。
それはどういう意味ですか？
聡子が帰ってきたら、どうせまたおばと喧嘩をするだろうと思います。そうしたらまた喧嘩や怒鳴り声ばかりの日になって、僕もそれに巻き込まれるのかなって思うと、聡子はずっと入院しててくれるのが一番僕にとって気楽なことなんじゃないかって、そう思ってしまう自分がいて嫌になります。
サトシ君。
Satoshi-kun is a great big brother who always sticks up for his sister. That doesn't mean he doesn't feel burdened.
そんなことを考えてしまうなんて、僕はなんて悪い兄なんだろうって思います。そうだと思えば思うほど自分が嫌になって。
Satoshi-kun said, sniffling once. His expression was one of anguish, as if truly feeling his own sin. His desire to be a model big brother is putting himself under great pressure. I feel bad for Satoko-chan, but I also feel bad for Satoshi-kun in a different way. As someone who knows the both of them well, I feel that I must be their ally, since they don't have anyone else who cares about them. Yeah. Alright. Next is C103 Administration Test. Piece 1. The very first piece, eh? Let's see. Plans for Satoko-chan's dissection are moving right along. I don't want Satoshi-kun to be sad, and I feel pity for Satoko-chan in her harsh circumstances. I'm still struggling with how much I have to sacrifice for the sake of research.
入江、
え？ああ、すみません。うっかりしていました。どうなさいましたか、リカさん。
僕の友達がずっと長く入院していますが、その子はHinamizawa症候群ではないのですか？
それを誰に聞きましたか？
僕がそう思っただけです。どうなのですか、入江。聡子はHinamizawa症候群ではないのですか？
Rika-chan is on our side. There's nothing I have to hide from her. Actually, I probably shouldn't keep anything from her.
はい。両親との不仲と、その両親の突然の死。彼女の心には、それは一度に受け入れるには、あまりに大きすぎる出来事でした。それが引き金になったのかもしれません。
検査の結果は？
レベル5です。上辺は非常に安定して見えますが、情緒は非常に不安定です。先日からサトシ君の見舞いも謝絶にしました。
サトシに聞きましたです。聡子の心の傷がなかなか癒えないと気にしていましたです。入江、聡子はどうなるのですか
Satoko-chan is Rika-chan's best friend. How can I tell her that we're planning to dissect Satoko-chan? However, even if I don't say anything, she already knows that Satoko-chan's situation is extremely poor.
入江は僕の体を調べてたくさんのことが分かったのではないですか？
ええ、それはもちろんです。症状を抑える効果が期待される試薬も現在いろいろと試しているところです。
それを聡子に与えることはできませんのですか？
一度は考えました。しかしかなり危険です。体力や精神力に余裕がある検体に試し、少しずつデータを集めていこうという段階です。聡子ちゃんのような もう後がない人間に試せるような代物ではありません。
では入江、その薬を試さないなら聡子はどうなってしまうのですか？
She spoke as if aware of our plans for Satoko-chan. In fact, she knows everything here. She's just putting in the questions that she always asked over and over and over, in the hopes that maybe she can solve something. No, she must actually know. I've told her about most of my research. She's more mature than she looks, so it'd be easy for her to figure it out.
僕は聡子が 1% でも助かる可能性があるならそれにかけるべきだと思いますです。
非常に危険な賭けです。最悪の場合、彼女は即座に末期発症し、錯乱するか、さもなければ人としての心を失い、一生を焦点の合わない目で壁を見て過ごす体になってしまうかもしれない。
Okay, so with this discussion that we're having right over here, I'm already thinking of the possibility that, okay, the reason why Satoko didn't go through dissection and all that, and we see her like in present time, she more than likely hasn't gone through the dissection stage is because Rika really tried to make Irie use the cure on Satoko, even if it's in like the earlier stages, to save her from dissection and all that, and thus bring her to like lower levels like L3 and L2 and all that. Rika knows that it will actually work, because she already went through that. So, yeah, the reason why it is more likely because of this, because of the cure, that we see Satoko live to this point. Now it makes me think, because we know that Rika is going through these fragments, these rolls, like over and over. And we know that her powers, like her time start, goes from very young till present time, and her powers have diminished over time to the point where she only rewinds time like a month or like weeks. So it makes me question, Rika, in her 100 years of going through this stuff, she has done this song and dance like over and over, which is actually pretty interesting, because if Rika's powers this rewind time has diminished so much to the point where she can only rewind like a month or like weeks and such, she is no longer able to rewind time to this point where she has to beg to Irie. It feels like it has become a constant, as far as we are aware. We have never went through, like me personally, I have never went through a fragment/world where Satoko is no longer there, meaning that the cure was not used. Assuming that the cure was used. I'm just talking right over here with that kind of thing in mind.
どちらもそれはあまりに過酷な運命です。
全身麻酔で痛みを感じさせずに眠ったままを殺す方がずっといいというの。入江、よく高野が言う通り、医学に 100% はない。でもこのまま放置すれば聡子を待ち受ける運命は 100% の絶対の死しかない。ならばどちらにかけるかは明白なはず。
そうですね。その通りです。
But I know too well. C103, the medicine that's being tested, may not even be something that can be used. It may not even have a 1% chance of success. Worse, I can't even imagine what kind of tragic end she'd meet if her body rejects the medicine. And that's why I'm tempted to believe it would be far more merciful to feed her favorite food, let her gently fall asleep, and after that, dissect her while she dreams. I don't want to admit it, but Takano-san is right. I'm being indecisive at showing lack of resolve. How effective could the medicine made by someone like that really be? So, because it was medicine I created myself, I couldn't even believe there might be a 0.1 chance of success.
僕は入江の作った薬なら信用できると思いますです。
But okay, this also brings up like even more questions. If this cure was used on Satoko, who had like L5, and it was a success, how come the same case can't be said for Satoshi, who I am fairly sure he was taken in for dissection? Which kinda makes me think that the procedure actually failed. It could either be that Satoshi was taken in and they decided to try and use the cure on Satoshi since it worked for Satoko, but he died. Because if it did work, he would have just come back. Easy peasy. But no, the fact that we don't really see him in present time means that the cure did not work and he died. Or they did the dissection and he died. Or maybe there's also that possibility that through dissection he survived somehow. That, or there is even a possibility that in some of the roads Satoko didn't reach L5 stage. So there was never a talk of using the cure to begin with, either for Satoko or Satoshi. The reason why the usage of cure is even brought up is because of Rika's love for her best friend Satoko. So it's a lot of variable right over here. Like, I don't know. She spoke as if she read my mind. Surprised, I raised my head up to look at her, and found her giving me a reassuring look I never would have imagined someone her age capable of. Unless... nah, it may be that I'm... Have we ever really established, like, the rule, like, the possible rule that everything that goes before 1983 is a constant, that we're going through like a constant timeline? It's just that when we go through 1983, June of 1983, the fragments would shift in like different ways in similar fashion to what we've gone through, like chapters 1 through 7, whereas before that everything is a constant, like in similar fashion to what I was thinking of when going through Yumineko. Or are some things changing? All no, you know what? No, I think it's safe to say that everything is a constant right over here, so I guess we're gonna have to see what goes through here.
入江は人の命を左右するとても辛い仕事に耐えている。本来人の生き死になど人間がどうにかしようというのがおこがましいこと。その重圧は背負ったものにしかわからない。
Her voice hasn't changed, but I feel like Rika-chan is admonishing me, almost as if she knows what it's like to be responsible for human lives.
その重さは罪の意識と後悔の重さを加えて決められる。だから入江はまだまだ危険な薬を聡子に試せない。そうでしょ。
Takano-san said the same thing when she criticized me earlier. I'm being criticized again.
でもだからあなたになら聡子を託せると思う。
え？
人の命はとても重い。その重みに耐えかねるのはあなたが人の命を大切にしたい心があるからこそよ。そんな心がなくしてどうして人を病気から救えるというの？高野みたいに人をモルモットとしか思ってないやつの治療薬なんか試せると思う？
I shouldn't have laughed, but I couldn't help it. Felt like I should have.
高野とあなたが
それぞれに薬を差し出したなら、私は入江の薬の方が治るように思う。だって薬は人の心から生み出されるんだもの。自分の身から滴り落ちる雫で人を救いたいという気持ちが人の病を癒してくれる。
おっしゃる通りです。医者が薬のことで諭されるとは。
私は自分の体を他でもない聡子のために差し出した。私の体から注射針で抜き出したものは全て私から聡子に捧げる薬の雫。その雫から命の本当の重さを知り、日々後悔と自責を忘れないあなたが何かを抽出してくれたなら、それが聡子に効かないわけがない。
Do shrine maidens take confessions? If they do, she's doing a great job being a shrine maiden at this age.
これは賭けになります。聡子ちゃんが果たして受け入れてくれるかどうか。
聡子に伝える必要はありません。聡子にとってHinamizawa症候群を知ることは心の深い傷をもう一度えぐることにしかならないのだから。
What did she mean by those words? When I realized it later, I was surprised by how thoughtful and perceptive she was.
解剖計画を中止させましょう。北条聡子に対する C103 投与実験に変更します。せめて 1% でもうまくいく確率が上がるように努力します。
大丈夫ですよ。入江、絶対にうまくいきますです。
そんな楽観してはいけません。
大丈夫なのです。もう決まってることなのですから。これはフルデ神社の巫女様の心強いお告げです。ファイトオンなのですよ。
Truly. Oh boy. Questions about timelines and such, it's always finicky. An accident at the Shirakawa park. Which, speaking of timelines and worlds and such, I still have the question, where is this power that Rika and Hanyu have coming from? Why is Rika going through this? That's still something that I have to question myself. At first I was thinking that it was like one of the hidden effects of Hinamizawa syndrome. Which, you know, it could still very well be possible. It's just that Takano has never ever realized that something like this would ever happen. Satoko-chan's dissection plan has been scrubbed, and we're getting ready to administer an almost totally untested medicine, C103. Okay, this experimental medicine suppresses the production of a certain type of hormone, and in doing so, it will stop the transmission of the syndrome triggering Satoko-chan's condition. Okay. The mechanism of Hinamizawa syndrome is as follows. The pathogen takes over the frontal lobe of the patient's brain and then induces increased responsiveness to paranoia. As a result, a patient voluntarily carries out excessively defensive behaviors, to a problematic extent. If this induction can be cut off, then it will be possible to save terminal patients from becoming deranged. It only cuts off an induction, so it's not really a cure. Ironically, the brain is an organ that learns. Once the brain has learned to be excessively paranoid due to the Hinamizawa syndrome, even after the pathogen is eliminated, the brain doesn't simply unlearn that paranoia. In short, even if the pathogen doesn't induce derangement, the patient will be directed to such emotions of their own volition. Yeah, so it has to be done like early on. Thus, it is impossible to completely escape the nearly deranged L5 state. The proverb, "a burnt child dreads the fire," is a good example of this. Even after the burn on your tongue heals, the fear of being burned by food again remains. When it ends up being a good thing, we call it learning a lesson, and we call it trauma when it doesn't. We predict Satoko-chan's treatment will take a significantly long time, requiring both medication, such as administering psychotropics, and mental care, like counseling. We have to slowly unravel her mind's solidified paranoia while also suppressing the syndrome's induction of derangement. This is the treatment plan for terminal patients like Satoko-chan. However, as we're going to stimulate the parts of her brain that affect her emotions while they're being stimulated by the pathogen at the same time, it's possible there could be unexpected side effects. Both her mental and physical strength hold key to our success. We were going to begin the experiment once she regains her emotional stability and physical strength, but someone who threatens to disturb her emotional stability has been coming here every day. Oishi, the sly old detective from Okinomiya Police Department. Oishi? He thinks everything, from the damn protest to the dismemberment murder of the construction manager, is an organized effort secretly conducted by the three families of the village. He even thinks the accident involving Satoko-chan's parents wasn't an accident. That's why he keeps coming back, so he can talk to Satoko-chan. Oh boy.
何度来られても、さとこちゃんへの面会を許可することはできません。彼女は両親を亡くしたショックで打ちのめされているんですよ。それを汲み取ることはできませんか？
いやいや、本当にちょっとだけお話が聞ければいいんです。そうお時間を取らせるつもりはないんですがね。令状が必要だってんなら申請しないことはありませんが、そうなるとかなり本格的なことになってしまいますよ。私も北条さんの容体を気遣っているからこそ、令状を取るなんて無粋を避けているんじゃありませんか。
令状を取ってまで一体何をさとこちゃんに聞こうとしているのか、私にはさっぱりわかりません。
実はですね、今回の転落、事故ではなく事件の可能性もありまして。
北条夫妻がダム戦争以来村中から嫌われているという話は知っています。ですがわざわざ旅行先まで追いかけて突き落とすというのは少々突飛すぎはしませんか？
まあ事故でもいいんですがね。ならばどうしてもよくわからない嘘があるんです。どうして嘘が必要なのかって考えるとですね、こりゃ事故ってことはありえないんじゃないかなって思うんです。
嘘とは何のことですか？
いえね、北条聡子さんの言う事故当時は車で眠っていたっていう話、ちょいと話がおかしいんじゃないかなってそう思うんです。
Satoko-chan claims she was asleep in the back seat when the accident took place. So she didn't get out of the car at the viewing platform. When she woke up, she didn't see her parents, and she found out they had fallen off the cliff.
それのどこに嘘があるというんです？まさかさとこちゃんが実は眠っていなくて両親と一緒に展望台へ行ったと、そういう意味ですか？
そうです。北条聡子さんは眠ってなんかいなかった。両親と一緒に車を降りて展望台へ行ったんです。
I'm suddenly hit by a terrible possibility. If what Oishi says is true, and Satoko-chan is saying she didn't go to the viewing platform even though she actually did, it's terrible to even imagine.
何を根拠にそうおっしゃっているのかわかりません。それに なぜ嘘をつく必要が聡子ちゃんにあるんですか？
それなんですよ。なぜ北条聡子さんは嘘をつかなければならないのか。それの本当のところを教えていただけないと、こいつはただの転落事故ってことでは済ませられないんです。
どうして聡子ちゃんが嘘をついているとお思いなんです？
今回の事故は所轄が違いますので、白川署さんが関係者から事情聴取をしているんですがね、その調書を読んでみるとどうにも引っかかるところがある。
引っかかるところとは何ですか？
北条聡子さんの主張によるならば、彼女は両親に展望台へ行こうと誘われたが、眠たかったのでそれを断り車を降りなかったという。そして彼女はそのまま熟睡してしまい、相当の時間が経ってから目を覚ました。そしていつまでも戻ってこない両親に不安感を募らせ泣き出した。その声を聞いて巡回中の公園作業員が話しかけて、事故が発覚したことになっています。この時ですね、公園作業員の証言では、両親が崖下に転落したと彼女が先に言ったというんですよ。ところがこの時、北条夫妻が止めた車の位置からは問題の事故現場ははっきりと見えたわけじゃないはずなんです。いや、注意深く見れば柵が破損していたのを気づけたかもしれない。でもですよ、目が覚めたら両親がいないのを知って真っ先に崖下へ転落したというのは尋常ではないと思うんです。普通は両親が自分を置いてどこかに散歩に行ってしまい戻ってこないというはずなんです。転落する直接の現場を見てもいないのに、両親が転落したと第三者にいきなり言うのがね、私はどうしても腑に落ちないんですな。このあたり、どうして彼女は両親が転落したと確信したのか、その経緯を教えてもらいたいと思いまして通い詰めているところだったんですよ。入院前に私も何度かお尋ねはしているんですが、記憶にない。当時は混乱していたと、まるでどこかの政治家みたいな答弁でしてね、私はじっくり話をしてみる価値があるかなって思っていたんですよ。
That terrifying possibility has turned to certainty in my head. I'd assumed that her parents' accident triggered her terminal symptoms. But no, Satoko-chan had already gone terminal, and just before the accident, her heart was filled with paranoia that drove her mad. She was under a lot of stress because of her bad relationship with her stepfather. She was also being scolded by her mother for not being able to get along with him. If that made her paranoid, it made her think her parents considered her to be a bother and were going to kill her. I didn't read that right. When they went to the viewing platform, she must have thought they were going to push her off the cliff. Then a tragedy took place, and she pushed her parents off instead, although she considered it to have been self-defense. I'm certain of that, because I know Hinamizawa syndrome better than anybody. This accident isn't an accident. It isn't a crime either, like Oishi's thinking. It is simply a tragedy. When I talked to Satoshi-kun about the family, I was even more convinced. He told me even though Satoko-chan refused to open up to her stepfather, he had tried to communicate with her. It's true their relationship didn't go well in the beginning. Satoko-chan caused trouble repeatedly, and even called the city's child abuse hotline. At that point, they received guidance from the Child Consultation Center, and then pointed out that the problem lay in lack of communication between daughter and stepfather. So the stepfather took a parenting course under social worker's guidance, and awkward though it was, he made efforts to communicate with her. Satoshi-kun noticed his efforts, so he tried to talk to Satoshi-chan about it. but Satoko-chan didn't notice them at all. The excessive stress she was under triggered terminal symptoms, and she couldn't understand her stepfather's remorse. On the contrary, her stepfather's change created even more mistrust within her. As a result, they went to enjoy the beautiful view of the Shirakawa Nature Park as a family, and to share in that joy. Yet that humble, ordinary family's wish couldn't even get through to Satoko-chan. What a tragic misunderstanding. Satoko-chan stayed in the car telling her parents that she wanted to sleep, but then she got out and snuck up behind them. I bet he heard her footsteps. He pretended not to notice her, thinking that she was doing that to surprise him. It's sad, just thinking about what must have ran through his mind. While he thought he had finally gotten through to her, she was actually approaching him with the intent to kill. But that's not Satoko-chan's true nature. It's the disease. Satoko-chan isn't the only one who is to be pitied. Her parents are its victims too. And now, Oishi thinks she's a criminal. Judgment and punishment are required for crimes with malicious intent. But what she really needs is understanding and sympathy. And no one has that understanding, except for me, because I know about Hinamizawa syndrome. I am the director of the A.k.a. Institute, but I never behaved as such or exercised that authority. But I'm going to do so for the first time since taking the position. I'm not doing it as the head of the A.k.a. Institute, the secret research organization. I'm doing it as a doctor, so I can protect Satoko-chan.
白川自然公園の聡子ちゃんの両親の転落事故ですが、この件、事故で決着するように山犬のおこのぎさんにお願いしてもらうことはできますか？
ええ、そんなことお安いご用ですわよ。山犬はそういうものの隠蔽や捏造に最も特化した部隊ですもの。確かに早くあの転落事故が事故ということに決着しないと、警察がうちの実験体に近づいて邪魔ですものね。
そういうことです。特に大石さんがこの件から早く引き上げるようよろしくお願いします。試薬投与実験のデリケートな時期です。不要な心労をかけるのは適当ではありませんので。
まったくですわね。山犬にそのように伝えますわ。警察にもすでにコネクションがあるとのことなので、圧力をかけるよう指示しましょう。近日中に白川転落事故は事故として確定することになると思いますわ。
With that, it was declared an accident. If only he really was one, he would have eased Satoko-chan's soul. Getting rid of the pathogen can't heal that wounded soul. Nor can it erase the tragedy that had already taken place. All I can do is my best, so the day she regains her smile comes sooner. Man, oh man. Alright, next is H170, the second piece. C-103's implementation on Satoko is going well so far. It wouldn't make any difference to me if the experiment failed. However, it is extraordinary focus and attention to the experiment has avoided Satoko Hojo's hallucinating or turning into a vegetable during the experiment. And surprisingly, we see prospects of her returning to normal life despite reaching L5. Alright, pretty good, pretty good. C-103 still has many issues, but this experiment proved that even a person who has reached L5 can be cured. I didn't believe in it at first, but I guess I have to acknowledge Iria's hard work. Only Irie could have done this. He was tormented by naive humanism and didn't want to make mistakes, and that is why he felt obligated to cure Satoko Hojo. The reason why I dislike Irie isn't because of his achievements or abilities, but because of that weakness. But this time, I had to praise him for it.
入江所長のレポートを拝見しましたわ。脱帽と言わざるを得ません。
いえ、私の研究者としての職務を果たしたに過ぎません。その結果、医者としての職務も果たせたなら、私にとってはそれに勝ることはありません。
今やさとこちゃんは私たちにとって最も重要な検体になったと言っても過言ではないでしょう。何しろレベル5に至りながら生還した初めての人間なのですから。
Alright. Now, once again, I am pretty curious. How come Satoshi wasn't as fortunate enough to, be sent home freely after reaching like terminal stages? Because more than likely he has reached like terminal stages. Because if this cure actually worked on Satoko, you would think that it would work on Satoshi. Otherwise, why would he disappear for such a long time? Assuming that he has been taken by Irie, which I do think that. Maybe the cure didn't work.
その通りです。彼女を社会生活に復帰させ、経過を見ながら長期観察に切り替えていきます。彼女には毎週日曜日にこちらに来てもらって、検査を受けてもらえるよう話をするつもりです。
しかし C103 を日に3回も注射する義務と毎週日曜日に検査に訪れる義務を彼女にどう説明されるおつもりで？彼女には何の病気の自覚もないのに。
そこは今うまく納得してもらえる話を考えています。今考えているのは私の研究論文に協力してもらうというものです。栄養剤の注射を毎日してもらい、毎週日曜日にその効果を検査する。その代わりに研究協力費としていくらかを支払うという感じです。
Payment is a good motivator. I guess he is determined to cure Satoko Hojo no matter what. And he seems determined to keep her off the dissection table. He and I are in different positions, but I don't have any complaints about his naive ideals so long as they translate directly into passion for our research. If his plans can be put into effect and produce a different result than the dissection would, then they'll still be useful to the overall understanding of the Hinamizawa syndrome. I have nothing against Satoko Hojo. It's only that I see her as a research specimen. If she can be useful in that capacity without being dissected, that's perfectly fine with me. Alright, that's good. Takano is fine with that as well.
日に3回もの注射となれば、これは本人だけでなく、保護者の方の同意も不可欠です。確か、ご両親が亡くなってからは、おじ夫婦に親権が移っていましたね。そちらに一度相談に伺おうと思います。メイへの怪しげな研究協力を承諾してもらえればいいのですが。
大丈夫ですわよ。
I mean, I do have to ask. Obviously, I'm no medic right over here. I don't know jack shit about all this stuff, but I guess there is the comparison of dissecting a person versus giving them the cure, and which one offers the most amount of information that will continue Takano's research. Like, from her perspective, what would give you like the most amount of information to continue her research and fulfill it, like, to Takano's satisfaction? I guess she's fine as long as the cure is doing its effects well on the Satoko. I guess it offers the same amount of information that Takano would need versus like in similar vein to a dissection.
そのための研究協力費ですもの。月に10万か20万も振り込んでやれば大喜びしますわ。
それだけの予算はありますか？
もちろん。 二郎さんを納得させる資料を作りさえすれば